right, so I usually start my presentations with a little story or a parallel. So in 1944, in the middle of the Second World War, the American Army deposited 29 reindeer on the island on St. Matthew's Island in the middle of the Bering Sea. They came back, they completely forgot about these reindeer until they came back about 13 years later, and they found that there were 1,350. They came back about 7 years later, and there were 6,000. So they came back the year after that with the hunting party, the shotguns, and a great enthusiasm because they knew that they'd be able to have a great feast the day after that. Good game. They came back, there were only 42 left. So they found an island completely depleted of natural resources, completely wiped out the reindeer population, except for these 42 reindeer. So what happened to the reindeer? The reindeer population had essentially starved to death. It wasn't because the island itself was not capable of supporting life. It was because the reindeer had eaten away at its resources until they had completely depleted the island's resources. Now, does that remind you of something? We humans are eating away at our natural resources, the natural resources of the planet, and it's having larger effects than most of us realize. So let me put that again. And it's not only deforestation, but we're eating away at the ocean's ability to support marine life. Dead zones are growing. We're not only taking resources from the planet, we're expelling corrosive stuff which are harming our planet, like carbon dioxide, which contributes to a cycle called the greenhouse effect. And the greenhouse effect is basically our planet's ability to keep in heat. And while we increase the CO2 concentration of our atmosphere, the temperature increases as well. And that's not exactly healthy for our planet. Now, this leads me to ask, are we smarter than reindeer? Or are we dumber than reindeer, and are we going to make the same mistake? And there's another question before I can answer this, is how did this come about? How are we colliding with the Earth? How are we living this unsustainable lifestyle? So the first thing we need to look at is the population, the sheer number of the people on Earth. So for most of human history, the population has increased at a relatively slow and paced rate, and our impact on the environment has been relatively small. But that changed at around the turn of the 20th century, where our population essentially soared. And in 2011, which is this year, we're planned on hitting 7 billion people on Earth. Now, I'm not sure you realize, but 7 billion is a really big number. And so every single second, 5 people are born and 2 people die, which makes an average increase of 3 people per second on the globe. Now, to put 7 billion as a number itself into perspective, it would take 200 years to count to 7 billion out loud. And 7 billion steps would take you around the world 133 times. Now, that proves the point that 7 billion is a very, very big number. And that is a heck lot of reindeer. That's a heck lot of reindeer to feed. That's a heck lot of reindeer to keep warm. That's a heck lot of reindeer to provide building materials for. And that's a heck lot of people that put carbon into the atmosphere. So the population has a big, the sheer size of our population has a big impact on our planet. But if it weren't for our technology, which allows us to have such a big impact, we wouldn't be having such a big influence on our planet's climate cycle. So here's an example. We used to dig around with small shovels like this one, where it would take hours of manual labor just to dig a hole a few feet deep. But now we have oil rigs, now we have oil rigs that do the work for us at the touch of a button and dig down to deep pockets of oil in the earth, several kilometers at depth. And with that, our impact on the environment increases. But sometimes this can go horribly wrong. We all know about the BP oil spill in 2010. And this is an actual ad from a BP's campaign and I think it was 1970. And someone at BP took that a little too seriously because the damage they caused was visible from space. This is a picture taken from the International Space Station. Now, no caveman with a shovel could do damage that is visible from space. Sorry. So our technology allows us to have a big impact on the environment, and it doesn't have to be accidental. It could be just that we don't care about the CO2 that we emit into the atmosphere, but sometimes if things go horribly wrong, it can be a big disaster. So the third thing that we need to talk about is our mindset, because if our mindset was different, if our way of thinking was just that just that different, we would be aware of what was happening and we would do something about it. But no, our mindset sounds something like this: I'll consume, 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 consume. Oh, look, the polar ice caps are gone. And it's not just a bad way of thinking; it's bad design. It's incremented into our very way of life, and companies take advantage of this because, let's see. I used to have an old computer that used a charger that looked like this, and when I bought a new computer, I had to buy a new charger along with it. Look, there's two chargers in there. Okay, so I had to buy another charger because this one was not compatible with the new computer I had. And the companies do this on purpose, because instead of reusing the old charger, they force you to buy new chargers as you buy more computers. And this is bad design, because that uses more materials to build more chargers for nothing. But then there's another thing that's wrong with our way of thinking, and that's our ability to put short-term profits over long-term survival. Now, that's true of certain companies who feel that their interests are threatened by the truth of global warming. So they launched several massive campaigns, media campaigns, whose goal was to shroud up the truth about climate change and to reposition the fact as a theory in the public's mind. Now, they came up with hundreds of arguments that, in my opinion, don't make sense. And one of the top arguments right now is that climate has changed before, sure, but not in such a scale. That there is no consensus among scientists, which is crazy, because 97% of scientists agree that climate change has been caused by us and is a bad thing. Then that it's cooling. I believe that that's self-evident, because only certain pockets are cooling, but I've heard someone say that you should, instead of calling it global warming, you should call it global weirding, because it's throwing the entire climate cycle off balance. But overall, the climate is warming. Then there's that the models are unreliable and that Antarctica is gaining ice. I don't know where they got that one, because they're probably pointing the finger at the only glacier, or the only glacier that is gaining ice, and ignoring all the glaciers around it that are losing ice at an alarming rate. And there's entire websites dedicated to commenting the truth about global warming, and like this one, the Climate Dispatch. And if you read that, the caption under that, but the funny thing is that they quoted Einstein, and they said that the only thing more dangerous than ignorance is arrogance. Now, I'm not sure about what you think, but I think personally that's a little hypocritical. But that brings me back to my question: are we smarter than reindeer? And the past and current generation sure isn't, and that leaves us to be smarter than reindeer, because it's not like we can hop onto a spaceship and escape the damage here on Earth. Because number one, we don't have that kind of technology, and number two, Earth is the only planet we know of in the solar system, or even the known universe, that can support life. We haven't discovered any Earth-like planets yet, which means that we have to find ways to solve the climate crisis down here on Earth. Now, it's not as hard as you would imagine, and I'm going to tell you a little story about a 14-year-old in Africa, William Kakwamba, in a small village, in a small horse-struck village in Malawi. And William Kakwamba was forced to drop out of a school because his parents could no longer afford his education, and yes, secondary school is paying down there in Malawi. So, and he went to the library often, and eventually found a book on wind turbines. And he thought it was a pretty good idea, so he went to the junkyard and built his own homemade wind turbine. And he first powered a light bulb, then his house, and then he built several other wind turbines and was able to power his entire village. Now, if he can do it, I'm not sure why we can't. I don't see why the entire US can't. I don't see why the world can't. There is no excuse. Now, this is a challenge for you future engineers because we need to switch over to renewable energy. Our current system does not work with our current population. Now, there are other issues that we need to resolve, which led my grandfather to say that the U.S. he's French, which led my grandfather to say that the U.S. was the only place in the world that he knew that went to such lengths to heat out the outdoors. Now, he was referring to space heating, but it applies to insulation as well. Because of the lack of insulation in our walls, heat is escaping through them, and that's just a waste of energy to heat and cool the house. Now, you don't have to wait until you're a professional, until you can vote, or until you're older to have an impact, because these two Girl Scouts found out that palm oil, an ingredient that is harmful to orangutans in Borneo, because it's only found there in palm, I think in certain kinds of trees. They found out that it was harming orangutans, and palm oil is an ingredient that is very commonly used in products like their legendary Girl Scout cookies. So they founded an organization that essentially is dedicated to combating this use of this ingredient, and they're succeeding in trying to convince these industries' minds about this ingredient. And then there's Alec Loers. He founded an organization that is called Kids vs. Global Warming, and that organization is suing the American government. I'm serious. They're suing the American government on behalf of all the youth of the world and on the topic of climate change. And he intends to win this lawsuit. So, and the reason why is because of this, is explained in this other story I have. It's about 1,000 students that in high schools in Washington that marched up to the White House, and they didn't ask Barack Obama to live up to the president he promised to be. They demanded it. They demanded him to. They demanded that he take action, more action on climate change, and they got in return just about the most valuable commodity in Washington: FaceTime with the president. All the members of Congress want FaceTime with the president. All the members of the staff want FaceTime with the president. All the politicians in Washington want FaceTime with the president. But they got 25 minutes of FaceTime with Barack Obama, and the reason is because of the first thing he said when he entered the room: "You have power." Now, the reason is because it is hard to look us in the eye and say, "I don't care. I don't care about your future. I don't care about what's going to happen to you in 50 years, because I'll be dead. I don't care." And we have the moral authority to look them back in the eye and tell them that this is morally wrong, that we matter, and that our future matters, and that this is the entire survival of the human race that matters. And the point is that you, as the youth generation of the world, have power. So what are you going to do with it? Thank you very much.